Thank you. Good evening. I'm Megan Handy, Chair of Viewpoint's Board of Trustees. And on behalf of my fellow trustees, it is my pleasure to welcome you this evening to the formal program of Viewpoint's Community Celebration. I am also honored this evening to introduce our headmaster and to share with you some of his many academic accomplishments. Dr. Robert J. Dorkowski was graduated from the George Washington University and attended graduate school at NYU and Columbia University, where he earned his doctorate in European history, specializing in the early modern period. Prior to his appointment in 1980 as the head of upper school at Harvard School, now Harvard Westlake in Los Angeles, Dr. Dorkowski taught history at Brooklyn College and served as the social studies department chair at Woodmere Academy in New York. In 1983, he was honored with a Fulbright scholarship to study in Europe. He also received a grant from the Council of Basic Education to study the political insights of William Shakespeare. In 1986, he was appointed as headmaster of Viewpoint School, and we have been fortunate to benefit from his visionary leadership. I also think some of his athletic accomplishments are equally impressive, like running the New York Marathon last year, and he and his wife, Chris, are planning on running it again next weekend. Yay! Please join me in welcoming our headmaster, Dr. Bob Dorkowski.
Thank you, Megan. I'm not sure if it's the best thing that I'm doing this marathon. I think if there are any orthopedic surgeons out there, they're probably saying, why are you doing it? I'm really not so smart after all, but I will be doing it. I thank you so much for joining us this evening on this festive occasion. This event mirrors very much how our school has achieved what it has in the last 25 years, indeed in the last 50 years. This event began with some ideas from my advancement office, Jennifer Rhodes, Amy Menson, others, to celebrate our community, to celebrate our school's achievements, and to open up these beautiful new facilities to you, our parents, and our community. So this is a grand celebration. Like all great accomplishments in life, accomplishments begin with an idea, a vision, and a dream. 25 years ago, when I began here, we had a marvelous faculty, great programs, and wonderful students, but we didn't have great facilities. Over the years, as our school grew and prospered and our reputation grew and enhanced, a number of us stepped together and said we want to give this school the facilities and provide our students with the best we possibly can. During the course of those years, we have grown by leaps and bounds, but the conclusion of this phase of construction is certainly the most dramatic. I walk in here most every day to the Paul Family Athletic Center, to the academic classrooms, and my breath is taken away from me every day. The joy it is a great joy watching your children, watching our students have their dreams and hopefully accomplish and develop what they wish to do for the rest of their life. In accomplishing these achievements in recent years, and especially this construction, we did not have the assistance of any level of government. We raised the money ourselves with generosity and hard work. From many in this room, we've accomplished and made our dream a reality. I'd like to thank for just a moment our Board of Trustees, those trustees current, those trustees past, who led the way. They inspired me when things looked like they may not get done. They jumped forward and made it happen. Would our Board of Trustees, current and past, please stand up for a round of applause, all of our trustees? Our school has enjoyed great success because we have been innovative, because we looked at things in a different way perhaps than others and addressed problems in new and creative ways. We would not go to a dentist whose technology was 1970s technology. We wouldn't have surgery that was 1995 technology, nor should we send our children to schools whose vision is antiquated, one that doesn't take into account the challenges we face and your children will face in the coming years. We have tried to be on the cutting edge of education and learning, but not in sort of a fashionably politically correct way. We didn't jump on every bandwagon, but we carefully assessed what opportunities there were for our students and for our school to grow, and we jumped on those and made those happen, the ones that were the best ones for us. The success of our Viewpoint, of our school Viewpoint, has been mirrored. It mirrors the success really of one of our leading trustees, Trustee Dirk Gates. Like so many of our board members, Dirk is an innovator in his professional life, and Viewpoint has benefited from his leadership and that of his fellow team of trustees over these last 11 years of construction. Dirk was raised in Southern California and grew up playing mischievous pranks and building Radio Shack kits and model rockets. In fact, some years ago, he helped to sponsor a model rocket club, and our students were going all around the country participating in rocket competitions. At a very young age, he showed his creativity and his engineering talent when he assembled his first computer from a Heath kit. Dirk went on to study engineering at college and business, and at the age of 27, founded his first company. In 1994, he was named to Forbes magazine's Whiz Kid list of the 5 youngest CEOs of the best small companies in America. His first company, Zircom, created the industry's first pocket Ethernet adapter, along with the first Type 3 PC card called the RealPort. Zircom grew to over 2,000 employees until 2001, when he sold the company to Intel. Dirk founded his second company in 2004 called Cirrus, which is a Wi-Fi technology company. His company provides wireless arrays that provide Viewpoint, our wireless computer cloud. Why has Dirk been so active and so engaged on our board, and why have we been so lucky to have Dirk? Well, because more than anything else in his life, despite all of his many accomplishments, more than anything else, Dirk is a dedicated family man. He is an amazing son, brother, husband, and father. His 4 children have all attended Viewpoint. Evan and Aaron are at college now, and Ian and Aiden are still at Viewpoint, classes of 2018-2019. In our recent annual report, Dirk is quoted as saying, "At Aiden's graduation, I will have spent 23 years at Viewpoint. Even when my children are all off to college, I can't imagine a time when I will not be involved at Viewpoint." That goes a lot to say, to explain how we've been so successful here with the dedication of people like Dirk Gate. All I can say, Dirk, is thank you for all you've done on behalf of our school. Please welcome Dirk Gates.
Thank you, Bob. My pleasure to be here tonight. Bob asked the question, why have I been engaged? Why am I here? And I think my answer would probably be very similar to a lot of your answers. I value education. I believe sincerely that I've been able to accomplish what I have in life because I received a good education. I wanted to make sure my children received a better education. I sincerely, deeply believe that our public schools were headed in the wrong direction, and I wanted to find a place that would provide a world-class, innovative, wonderful education and provide a place where my children can feel like they're a part of something more than just a school, part of a family, part of a community. And so 15 years ago, my wife Tina and I embarked on a search to find that school, that family, that community. And so with the help of some of our neighbors, the folks across the street recommended Viewpoint. There were a couple other private school options. We started our search, and Bob always cringes when I tell this story. But there was I believe it was a June afternoon, 15 years ago. My wife Tina and I drove up to Viewpoint School. We parked in the parking lot right outside the Barron's building, and we looked at each other and said, "Really? This is the best private school in the area?" Now, Tina had been a world traveler as a child and gone to private schools in the UK and Australia with giant brick buildings and sprawling lawns. And We sat there that afternoon in front of the Barron's building and said, should we even get out of the car? Do we want to go in here? And Bob, you really need to thank Tina, because she goes, come on, we drove out here, we've come this far. What's the harm in going and talking to the folks? So we got out of the car, went in, we met Bob, we met Chris, and we ended up spending hours. I think it was a total of 4 hours that afternoon with Bob and with Chris, and we looked at what the school was doing and quickly got past the facilities, and we saw the magic. You heard Bob talk about the magic. We saw the magic that afternoon. We saw what was special about Viewpoint. It was what they were doing with modest resources to provide an amazing education to children. That's what got me hooked. All of this is wonderful. In the last of 11 years, no doubt, we've accomplished amazing things. We've added 133,000 square feet of building. We've expanded from 7.5 acres to 25 acres. We have accomplished just a phenomenal amount of work on the outside. But what we can't lose sight of, and maybe you may not be aware of, is that magic has continued to grow as well. As Bob mentioned, we continue to innovate on what we do inside these facilities as much as we innovate with the facilities we build. The school is now up to 16 different honors courses. There are 27 advanced placement courses. That same magic that was being used to provide that incredible education to 600 students 15 years ago now does that regularly for 1,200 students. And it does it with no decrease in excellence in doing that. In fact, I would argue the excellence of the programs that we teach are today better than what they were 15 years ago. So while I applaud everyone and their generosity for helping us to produce the facilities that are the equal of the program that was here, and this school's desire to always provide the best education, to find ways to innovate in what it is they bring to the table, they bring to our students every day, that's what makes this place phenomenal. And it's in that spirit that we have a wonderful guest speaker with us tonight from Stanford University. We have Dr. Keith Devlin with us tonight, who is an international scholar and an innovator in mathematics education, really helping students globally find new ways to understand mathematics concepts. So I think technically he is the director, co-founder and director of the H-STAR Institute at Stanford, Human Sciences Technology Advanced Research. So that's what that is. But when he gets up here and starts to speak, you'll probably recognize him as the voice behind the math guy on NPR. So with that, I would like to welcome Dr. Keith Devlin to the stage to talk to us about his research.
Okay, thank you. I often get invited to go and give talks at schools and colleges, but this is kind of unusual. This is clearly a very special event in a very special school, so I'm truly honored to have been chosen as the speaker for this evening. There are two books that I think every parent and, well, there are many books that I think every parent and every teacher should read, but the two I want to concentrate on tonight are these two books. Well, first of all, let me just, before I do that, I did want to make a point. That I'm a mathematician, so you're expecting me to give a talk that's related to mathematics. And I am indeed going to pitch my talk about mathematics education, but by the time I get to the end of my 15 minutes, when my 15 minutes are up, as they say, I have hoped to have convinced you that the word mathematics is irrelevant, because I'm really talking about education. And indeed, I'm picking up, I think, on what a couple of people have already said. I think one of the things that we need to be doing in good education is forget all of these different names that separate the disciplines, because it's really about one thing. It's about educating a human being. Okay, the two books that I jumped ahead to were Thomas Friedman's book, The World is Flat, a few years old now, although it's had several upgrades, and then The 4-Hour Work Week by Timothy Ferris. Both are about the kind of society that we have created for ourselves, essentially using the internet and rapid communications and rapid transportation systems, where we've literally flattened everything and the economy has become global. And that's changed a number of things. For example, when my parents were coming through the school system in the 30s, if you were good at arithmetic, that was a marketable skill. By the time I was coming through the high school system in England in the 1960s, the early 1960s, being good at arithmetic was just finishing to be a marketable skill. Desktop calculators were coming along. Eventually, or fairly rapidly, they were followed by pocket calculators, hand calculators, and then computers and personal computers. And that made doing arithmetic was still a valuable thing to have, but it was certainly not a marketable skill. It was something you could buy and put in your pockets for $10. However, at the time I was coming through the school system, if you were good at algebra and other parts of mathematics, that was a marketable skill. But it's not now. Technology has taken away a lot of it. Pretty well any piece of mathematics that you would want to solve if you're in industry or business, you can buy a computer program or a machine that can do it for you. You can download an app that will do that mathematics for you and do it pretty well. Now, sometimes controlling the machine requires some mathematical ability, but that can be outsourced. You can outsource mathematics just as easily as you can outsource computer programming. And it's one of the fastest things to outsource. If I was running a large company in this country and I needed some people to solve equations, it makes no sense for me to hire an expensive person to do it. When 5 o'clock rolls round, I send that set of equations over to India or China, and then when I come into the office the next day, they've been solved by small teams of people. You can outsource everything that made my career possible can now be outsourced. It's no longer a unique marketable skill. Bearing that in mind, I want to ask the question now, well, what should we be teaching? And initially, remember, I'm talking about mathematics, but it's going to generalize. What do we mean by a world-class education system? One of the ways that politicians love to measure it is how we stand in the rankings. This is the Olympics approach. How many gold medals do we have? And if we start to take that measure, we don't do too well. In fact, most of our industrial competitors not only rank above us, we're sort of high in terms of numbers, but just look at the lengths of the lines with the countries like Singapore and China and so forth that are there. So we don't do too well if we measure these international comparisons, which are based on taking various kinds of tests. We could decide to measure the effectiveness of our education system by the per capita GDP of the country. That reflects to some extent the educational system. And there we do sort of okay, but we're certainly not the leader. And again, some of our competing companies are sort of floating around in the same ballpark. But it's okay. It's not great, but it's okay. Another thing we could measure is innovation. And there are various ways of measuring it. There's one that measures the overall Global Innovation Index, and there we do pretty well. We rank 9th, and the numbers are actually not too far ahead of the leaders. So we clearly are doing something right in terms of innovation. If you measure something more specific, like the innovation output, the performance, then we find ourselves at number 5. So it's when you start talking about thinking outside the box, innovation, that's where the United States begins to look okay, at least as a nation. Okay. And I'm going to take this as my starting point. I don't see any future for the United States other than staying ahead of the innovation game. At Stanford, my institute, we do research with a lot of companies from around the world, a lot of governments from around the world. And the groups we work with most closely are the ones that are ahead of the innovation game. That, I think, is going to be our future. I don't see any other alternative. So what does that mean in terms of mathematics? Well, mathematics over the centuries has always developed in response to society's needs. Numbers actually arose about 10,000 years ago. Numbers and arithmetic arose because of money. It was basically a way of keeping track of people's possessions and their worth. So the first use of numbers was money. In fact, it was money. Okay. In terms of Western Europe, modern finance, banking, accounting, double-entry bookkeeping, international trading conglomerations, All of that came out of Italy, in particular Pisa and Florence, in the 13th century. And why did it come out of there? Because Pisa and Florence was the place in the Western world that first got modern arithmetic, invented by the Indians in the first 6 or 7 centuries, taken up the Silk Route by the Arab-speaking traders, and then it crossed the Mediterranean at the very end of during the 13th century, the beginning of the 13th century, it crossed the Mediterranean, went into Pisa, and suddenly you've got all of modern banking and finance and insurance, all of that coming out of Pisa and then Lombardia up to Venice and then to Europe. And what was important were these 4 eons: addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. It was the fact that the Italians got that first that enabled them to dominate the world in terms of finance and commerce. That was what it was. By the way, that is a page from a book in the public library in Siena, which is a 13th century manuscript. It's one of the first books in modern arithmetic published in the Western world. That dependency or that importance of arithmetic lasted right through until the 19th century. If you were good at arithmetic, you could be good at trade and commerce and industry. So it takes us right up through to the Industrial Revolution in the United States and in Victorian England and so forth. If you come into the 20th century, in particular towards the second and third parts of the century, this is the second third and then the final third of the 20th century, then you needed rather more. Things got a little more technological. You needed more than just arithmetic. You needed calculus, you needed algebraic techniques. And so I'm going to take the eons up to differentiation and integration. That was really, the calculus was behind a lot of 20th century technologies and industry. But very few people work in that kind of environment now. That's how people work today, especially in the United States, in the innovation nations. And then there's a couple of new eons of coming in. Communication and collaboration. And the increase in size of the fonts is meant to reflect what I regard as the increasing importance. Each one came to dominate the previous one because the previous one became capturable by technology and could be outsourced. Very hard to capture these by technology. Technology can help, but you can't really capture them, and it's very hard to outsource some of these. So we may actually be getting into an era where we can actually hang on to a lead, because really what we're talking about is the latest eon of all, innovation. And that's really what it's about. If we can't send our kids out capable of working or even living in a collaborative communication environment, then we're not doing well for them. So what do we want our education system to provide in the sense of mathematics? What I've been calling over the last 5 or 6 years, innovative mathematical thinking. That means being able to think outside the box, find and adapt existing methods and techniques for novel situations, take something you know, change it a bit and apply it into something you didn't know before, find new approaches and methods and techniques for new problems, collaborate with others, work in multidisciplinary teams, communicate well. When I was at school, none of these were focused on in mathematics education. But that was a different era. Everything I learned can be outsourced. Must have broad sense of the scope, power, and limitations of mathematics. Good, but not necessarily stellar mathematical ability. Remember, I am a professor of mathematics, so I'm saying this with some knowledge and some humility. But faced with my skills being outsourceable, I think I need to move too. The ability to quickly master new mathematical techniques. And let me just focus on this. A broad sense of mathematics. Not necessarily stellar ability. That's the stuff you can outsource. Ability to quickly master something new. Those are the things I think are really crucial to being involved in mathematics in an innovation nation. But wait a minute. The mathematics focus has just disappeared. I'm just talking about innovative thinkers. In other words, for several thousand years, we have actually singled out mathematics, and I think with good reason. It's difficult to learn mathematics, you need to focus on it. We've singled that out has been something special. But I think those days are gone. Yes, it's important, but so is lots of other things. And you've really got to think of the whole spectrum if you want to grasp what education needs to be about. We certainly need people, and the world needs people who can do this kind of thing. That's important to have those people for a variety of reasons. It's part of our art, our culture, human history, the people that like to do it, it's fun. That's important. But that's more important for the future of the United States. Being able to produce new ideas with bits of mathematics, bits of physics, bits of electronics, bits of human insights, a whole bunch of other stuff. And in fact, the whole spectrum of disciplines begins to look like a holistic thing that we need to develop. I'm not the only person that said things like that. This one's kind of interesting. As I was preparing this talk, or thinking about what I was going to say a few weeks ago, I looked at this fairly recent issue of Fast Company, and this is something stated by one of the people who actually runs one of these fairly high and sophisticated outsourced places in India, a place where you can ship intellectual work. And this guy laments the fact that although he can hire hundreds of people who can solve an equation in a heartbeat, he finds it almost impossible to hire people coming out of the Indian education system who can think innovatively and think outside the box. Interesting. He's not talking about the whole educational system. Well, he maybe doesn't know. Those of us that live in the United States and California know that we have a very broad range of ability, of success in our education system. But what he's latching onto is the fact that in the schools that are doing it well, we're doing it better than anybody else in the world. We're producing truly innovative thinkers. And it's latching onto that we need to do and let that spread to more and more schools. And remember, that's said by someone who's in this bogey area of where the things are being outsourced. In the United States, we celebrate success. We love success. And we see images like this all the time. I deliberately chose international images with just one American. But we celebrate success. We love to see people win. And then we should ask ourselves, what does it take to achieve that thing? Looking at the picture of someone winning doesn't tell you what it takes to do that. If you want to see what's required for success, you need to look at the picture of that individual just before the competition begins. And here's what you see. The magic ingredients for success, just look at the concentration, the focus, and the passion. It's really about those three: passion, commitment, and focus. Not just in athletics, not just in cycling or running or anything else. That's in everything. It's all about passion, commitment, and focus. If you can produce kids from the schools that have those three, game over. They're going to be fine. Athletes aren't the only people where you can see that degree of passion, commitment, and focus. There's another group of people where you'll see that. And those are children doing something they're interested in. Just watch the face of a child who's interested in what he or she is doing. Doesn't matter what it is, just look at that face. Oh my, oh my, oh my. We have world beaters in our classrooms all the time. Doesn't matter what they're doing, you look at the face of a child who likes and is interested in what they're doing. They're world beaters, they're gold medalists. One of the people who's remarked on that is the guy whose image is in the middle. And since he was a neighbor of mine, I can't help but finish with some of his words.
Your work is going to fill a large part of your life, and the only way to be truly satisfied is to do what you believe is great work. And the only way to do great work is to love what you do. If you haven't found it yet, keep looking, and don't settle.
If you haven't watched Steve Jobs' commencement address at Stanford in 2005 on YouTube, please go home and do it. It's pretty short, it's an amazing speech, and he really nails what it's about in terms of his own life, about following your passion, following your interests, encouraging your children to do that one. It all works if you do that. The children are hardwired to respond to that. That's what they love to do. And Steve Jobs actually had that absolutely right. and it doesn't matter what it's in. That's why, although it may have sounded as though I was talking about education as being a route to a career, I really wasn't. I was talking about education as being a preparation for life. And in the kind of world we have created for ourselves, the difference between career, life, other things, those are all blending away as well. We're just living a life and it all comes together. If I've inspired you or reinvigorated you or anything positive about education and you're interested in some of the ideas, there is a book that I brought out earlier this year about some of my ideas about the way mathematics education in particular should be going. But I should have made it clear, I think, that by mathematics education, I'm hoping we reach the stage where the word mathematics just fades away as being a historical distinction that's no longer relevant. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Devlin. Those words are very inspirational and also validating. When my colleagues and I are looking to bring teachers to our school to join our community, just those three words come to mind: passion, commitment, and focus. Those are really what the best teachers can do. A building like this is splendid for your children to attend school, but it doesn't justify the expensive money you'll make to have them here. What justifies it are the teachers in the classrooms. The heart and soul of a school is its faculty, those who work with and inspire your children. Therefore, it seems appropriate at this moment that I bring forward one of our gifted teachers in the English department, Nan Cohen, who also has a background from Stanford University, like Professor Devlin. Nan teaches literature to our students and writing, and she has a few words to say as well as a poem for us. Nan?
Well, I am so proud to be a part of this remarkable faculty and so grateful to work with our wonderful students every day. And as a member of the English department, I'm honored to help mark this occasion by sharing a poem with you. This is a poem called Witness by Denise Levertov, who was born in England of Russian and Welsh parents, but lived in California for more than a decade and taught, like Dr. Devlin, at Stanford University. In the poem, Levertov lives down the road from a mountain. It might, I think, be Mount Rainier in Washington State, which is where she lived at the end of her life. And she reflects on what it is to live in such close proximity to a mountain, yet often to have it hidden from her by external impediments or by internal ones. Of course, this seems like a very good image for what it is to work every day in proximity to something tremendous, as we do when we work on behalf of the young. And when we teach, when we parent, when we earn, when we build, when we serve lunch, when we wipe a table, when we direct, when we coach, we're working alongside something immense. And others besides me have pointed out that in those daily tasks are enormous lessons. When you wipe a nose, you're teaching a child about tenderness. When you sit with a child as she struggles to build a block tower, you're helping them learn something about persistence. And the little lessons build the big ones. So we work alongside something immense every day, but of course in order to concentrate on each task at hand, and there are many of them, we almost have to lose sight of the enormous, immense purpose in which we're engaged. So this evening has been so lovely, and it's about making that enormous, often invisible to us, presence seen and felt for just a moment. This is Denise Levertov, Witness. Sometimes the mountain is hidden from me in veils of cloud. Sometimes I am hidden from the mountain in veils of inattention, apathy, fatigue. When I forget or refuse to go down to the shore or a few yards up the road on a clear day to reconfirm that witnessing presence.
Thank you, Nan. The final portion of our program this evening is the portion that we intentionally left to the end because it demonstrates and displays what is most important to us at Viewpoint is our children, our students, your children. So this evening we will conclude with the Viewpoint Vocal Jazz musicians performing under the direction of Bill Brendel. They will excite you, they will make you recognize and realize how we do so many things well at Viewpoint, especially music. After the conclusion of their performance, please join us for the reception out in the Upper School Plaza. Thank you.
Hi everyone, thank you for attending the Building Celebration event. On behalf of myself and Mr. Brendel's Vocal Jazz Ensemble, I'd just like to say that we're so honored to be able to perform at such a momentous event. And we'd like to thank Dr. and Mrs. Dorkowski, Mr. Rosenbaum, and Mr. Howie, and everyone else involved in making this wonderful event possible. So the song that we'll be performing today is a pretty well-known song, so if you guys know it, feel free to join in. Thank you, and I hope you enjoy the performance. I've been searching for what's right, trying to find my light. Wanna find a way to light it from inside.